dog.
What up, everybody? It's Hump Day. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. We come to you Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Used to be Central Time. Now it's Eastern Time. Every week to talk electrical. Anything you want to talk about in the electrical industry, we will cover. You will hear various opinions of me, whether you take them as what they are or whether you discount them and say, Paul don't know what the hell he's talking about. That's fine too. I don't really care. I just love trying to get your day started every day so that you can go out there and be batting 1,000. You know what I'm saying? Again, I like to live vicariously through you folks, students that are in our programs. We had an amazing week. We brought on quite a few new students. Hopefully they know that they can get in touch with me anytime they have a question. They can use the interactive feature in our program. I'm here to support them, and that's what our programs are all about. It's not just giving you a book or a DVD or watch some pre-recorded videos. Look, it's all immersive. And so again, I just want to say out there to all of our students and all the people that have invested in us, we're invested in you and we're constantly adding things to try to make the programs better. If you're interested in an exam prep program or you just want to learn the National Electrical Code, I have a personal opinion. I believe there's no better program than our Fast Track system. Just go to fasttracksystem.com. Okay. All right. And if you like videos, check out Fast Track's Tube. You do have to be a subscriber. We do give you a few free videos, but really, you got to subscribe to get the most out of it. So check that out. And if you're an enhanced student in our program, you automatically get 12 months of this as well. So there you go. Also, don't forget Spin to Win. We have a lot of the goodies that have gone out, and we have people that have updated that sent it to the paulabernathy.com portal and all that stuff. I'm not going to fill your winnings that way. You have to send it to winner, WINNER, at fasttracksystem.com. So if you're wondering, I haven't got my stuff, that's the reason why. We started using that email address, and I've said it a million times, so you should all be used to it by now, right? Okay. Anyway, welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be we're continuing on our episode and talking about different wiring methods. Can I tell you it's going to be an hour show? No, because we know how long-winded I am. And these intros tend to take up 15, 20 minutes anyway. But when we do the replays, or not the replay, when I move it over to Fast Track's Tube, I remove this front part so that you can just enjoy the content. So that's another reason to be a subscriber. If you're coming back later, you can get past the stuff and you get right to the content. Make sense? All right. So again, I live vicariously. We're going to be talking 350, 356. We're going to be talking flexible metal conduit, Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit, and Liquidtight Flexible Nonmetallic Conduit. So those two. We're going to talk about LFMC and LFNC today. Try to cover that in this topic. All right. Also, I live vicariously again through you folks. So again, shout out in the comments. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what you got going on. Maybe some successes you've seen, things like that. I love it. So let's go. First in the box is Paul Montoya. Oh, by the way, Paul is also watching behind the scenes over on TikTok. We do stream on TikTok. Master the NEC is our handle. It is behind the scenes. I don't answer comments there. You have to come to the live stream in order to ask your questions and be involved. But again, we do stream over there based on the direction of my voluntary board of directors who want me to also be on TikTok. So making y'all happy. I'm on TikTok. Okay. Don't have a lot of followers on TikTok, and that's okay because I'm not an engaging guy. I get it. Okay. And I can be quite abrasive and annoying, and that's okay too. I can live with that. And let's see here. What's up, Haas? Glad to have you here, my friend, from up in Virginia, right up the way in Richmond area. Glad to have you here. Halfway through the week, that's what I'm talking about. That is our hump day.
Big dog.
What's up, JC? Good morning. Glad to have you here, my friend, watching over on YouTube. Thank you. Adrian's in the house. Welcome, Adrian. Glad to have you here. What's up, New Place? Glad to have you here. Good morning. Cray Cray's in the house, representing Tennessee. Got the Vols going on. Welcome, Cray Cray. We got the first CMECP in the house. What's up, Jason? Good morning. Glad to have you here. Hey, for all of you out there that are master electricians and you're actively in the field, you're actively marketing yourself, you're trying to get more business, you're trying to put yourself above everybody else, talk to Jason, talk to other CMECPs, and ask them what their journey was like going through the CMECP program and why it benefits them. It's just the extra knowledge, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. So again, it's a good exercise to increase your knowledge, things like that. So check it out. Ask him. More than will. I'm sure he'll give you his opinion. What's up, Adam? Good morning. Glad to have you here. What's up, Corbin? I don't see a good morning, but I see a hashtag win, so that's good enough for me. Welcome. Let's see. What's up, Greg? Glad to have you here. Good morning, Douglas. Glad to have you here, my friend. Also, just a shout out, people, don't forget to do the hashtag win if you want to get in on the spin, that type of thing. That's an example of how to do it right there with Greg. It's not case sensitive. I learned that a couple months ago that it's not a case sensitive thing. But if you follow directions, and I know all you electricians do, we'll talk about something in a minute. But you do see that I have it as hashtag capital WIN. But again, it supposedly all works. So what's up, Michael? Glad to have you here. Good morning. Hopefully your day's starting out well or got better at 8 a.m., right? When you came to coffee hour. What's up, Jonathan? Glad to have you here. Angel over on YouTube channel. Good morning. I'm doing great. I cannot complain. Okay. No complaints at all. Okay. Wish I could tolerate medication a little bit better, but you know what? You can't have everything, right? And I ain't going to whine about that. What's up, Manny? Welcome, Manny. What's up, Rob? Melting Toast. The Nickman's in the house. Good morning. Glad to have you here. Let's see here. We got the wins going on. Seattle. Or two separate words, or two separate symbols, or it means absolutely nothing. It's just SCIATL. You know what I'm saying? But you're in the house, and that's what it means. Thank you. Let's see. Jonathan is a fast track student, and he did win a grounding and bonding course. That's why it's important to get in on the win. Okay, he got a free course out of it. There you go. And I know he's going to be diligently in there working on it. I am doing good, Angel. It is hump day. Glad to have you here, my friend. We got another CMECP in the house. Okay, we got our brother from another mother up at BWI Airport. It seems like he's still working on there. He says reviewing new FAA specs today. That sounds like fun. Charlie's in the house. Back into the stream. Charlie. It's funny, Charlie. I have a little slip here from the last drawing with your name on it when you won that NFC card. Okay, so it just happened to be sitting there. Yusul, glad to have you here. You love the 2-hour long coffee hours? Yeah, some people love it, but you'd be surprised that you give away knowledge and education to people. I still get hate mail that says you're too long-winded and you take too long. I laugh at that because I realize that those people that send me that, they watch the whole thing. And they were negative. I'm like, guess what? I got 2 hours of your life you'll never get back. I stole it from you. Now who wins? I stole it from you. Because you could just ignore me and go watch somebody else and be more productive. But no, you watched it for 2.5 hours. I stole that part of your life. Now who's the winner? I'm just saying you can never get it back. Oh, so funny. What's up, Red Dog? Woo, 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 woo. Big dog. Shouting out to his brothers and sisters. I don't know if we have any female electricians in the house today. We'll see. Tara might be in here. Let's see here. Let's see here. Oh, Charlie says he's tried it in many ways and it always works. Excellent. That's good to know. Always better. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. What's up, Larry? Glad to have you. There's Samantha. Samantha's in the house. Thanks, Samantha, for joining us. Welcome. Glad to have you here. What's up, Mike from the outdoors? Alex, welcome. I believe it's still Alex. Welcome. Glad to have you here. David Bueno's in the house. What's up, Bueno? Yep. Don't worry about the haters. I just like teasing on them because I let them know that I've stolen a portion of their life. It's in my back pocket. They can never get it back. And the funny thing about it is they're usually not new haters, right? They keep coming back. Why do you think they keep coming back, folks? The haters still come back, right? Why do you think they come back? It's because they learned something. I always love a hater. What's What's up, David? Another CMECP in the house. Glad to have you here. Okay. Putting out fires in the sunny. Oh God, that's a scary statement. I know you're putting out fires like I put out fires every day, but in Florida, you never know. I'm just saying. What's up? Oh, what's up? Let's see. The electrician, your life, your time, it's all mine. There you go. Welcome. Jason, there you go. That's what it is right there, Jason. I live rent free in all of their minds from the haters, and they follow me all over the place, right? Okay. Even though Cy Porter, who knows that he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about, he's still trying to watch. All of them are trying to watch, and his little cronies are always sharing. Okay, small story. We'll get to the lesson today. Again, all of you, I appreciate you. Please comment. Let me know in the where you at, where you from, what you got going on. You got anything coming up? Any exams coming up? Anything you run into? Let me know. We'll give you some positive support. If you have any tips you want given to you on studying, if you're preparing for an exam, again, the root of this is I teach people the NEC. So you got questions like that, I want to be able to answer them for you. Again, today we're finishing up on a bunch of podcasts that came in. Now, I've answered most of these probably in an email back to the original person that sent them in, but selective few are going to be on a podcast that we're doing. So make sure you check those out. Always get our mobile app. It's free over on our website. This website right here, it's free. Okay. I've even reduced some of the stuff. So look, we're only giving you the important stuff like blogs, and you can get to coffee hour instantly. You can get to a bunch of different things quickly using our mobile app. So you really should be getting our mobile app. Hopefully you all have that. It's free, and we're not going to load anything into your phone. It's all web-based. It's just a little icon that you accept to be put on your phone. So when you click it, it actually goes to the website. If you don't want to do that, that's okay too. You can just go to each thing on your mobile phone, and it's dynamic anyway. Doesn't matter. Okay. Oh, here's a hint. If you actually go to this website, okay, and you go there and you see the link, you click on it even on a browser, and the mobile app actually works in a regular browser too. It actually works in your desktop too. It's big, but you can click on anything and it works. So little hint if you didn't know that, because it's browser based. We're not going to load junk in your phone. I'm just, y'all know me. I'm against all that, that type of crap anyway. So anyway, so that's what we got going on. I don't know. I was talking about something, but I got distracted. So let's go on and get to. Oh no, sorry, I have ADD. Y'all know that. I wanted to talk about this video that's circulating from a gentleman over on TikTok. If you're not a TikTok fan and you check it out, it's a gentleman that's talking about Wagos and lever style and the push-in styles and wire nuts. And he's doing a bunch of videos and pre-twisting his joints and saying that you all learn to pre-twist and that's the only way to do it. I have no problem with people giving opinions. I'm opinionated. Problem is the way he's doing those videos, he's acting like he's an authority that all schools do it or teach it this way or everybody gets taught a certain way. When in the background behind him, he's got violations, at least 3 or 4 that are on a board of wiring that's right behind him. You would think if you're going to stand in front of a board and teach something or talk about a topic that you at least make sure the shit behind you is code compliant. I'm just saying, it doesn't say a whole lot about your video when you got crap in the background that is not code compliant, and it's evident it's not code compliant. It makes it hard for somebody to take it. Now I get it. Somebody like me will nitpick it apart, but at the end of the day, I'm sitting there thinking the information that you're sharing is incorrect. It's opinion. Like saying, if you don't like Wagos, that's an opinion. If you don't like lever style, it's an opinion. Or he talks about how easy they pull out, or that you have to pre-twist so that conductors don't pull apart in a box. Everybody's had their own experience. I get it. But let's face it, there are millions of Wagos out there. There are millions of lever style connectors out there. There are gazillion wire nuts out there. The manufacturer of the wire nuts say you don't have to pre-twist. The Wagos, they push in, no different than backstab. We have the haters that don't like it. Look, all these products are listed. If you don't want to use them, that's a personal preference. You might have gone to a couple calls. You know, it's like anybody. You go to a restaurant, you have a bad meal. Next thing you know, it's a shitty restaurant. That's in your mind, right? You rush to Yelp to give a bad review. Reality is, I deal with wire and cable. I have dealt with wire nut fires, Wago issues, lever issues, backstab issues, wrapping of receptacle issues, because it all tends to melt down our wires. People want to blame the wire manufacturer for overloads, that the wire didn't handle it, that there must be not enough copper in the wire, that was produced substandard. I deal with this. And as an electrical code expert, I get calls and I serve. Most of you know that I've served as expert witness on cases, AFCI cases, things like that. Usually 9 times out of 10, it's user error. They don't strip enough wire, or they strip too much wire, or they repeatedly push it in and out of a device till it weakens the mechanism. One and done, okay? You put it in, you leave it in. Or people install something improperly. Do I use the Wagos? Absolutely, I will. Will I use the back push-in style? Absolutely, I will. Will I use wire nuts? Absolutely, I will. Will I backstab a receptacle? Absolutely, I will. Why? Because they're all listed. It's a personal preference that you choose if you don't want to use, because, well, I've seen so many burned down. Dude, I've seen so many burned up receptacles with the conductor wrapped around the screw. But I have not formed an opinion to say, well, this is worse than this, or this is better. Everybody to each his own. My point is, these are all opinions. But when people do videos and they do it as if their opinion is gospel, that's a problem. Okay? It's surely an opinion. If it's a listed product, it's been evaluated. And I'm going to trust in the evaluating bodies. Okay? I might have my differences with them, but I trust in these evaluating bodies. Well, they're all sellouts. Really? Do you think they're going to pay? Who do you think they're going to pay a bunch of money to get Wagos on the market just to sell out to electricians? Stop it. Stop it. It's a listed product. Okay? Also, the guy goes, well, if they're pre-twisted, they won't pull apart. Is there a magic little fairy that sits inside of your outlet boxes that's sitting there pulling these wires apart? If it's a shitty install, if you push the wires and you don't line it up right, or you don't do, if you're doing stranded to solid and you don't give a little bit more stranded than solid so that the makeup as you're twisting it takes care. If you're doing it crappily, you're going to get crappy results. Crap in, crap out. If you follow the freaking instructions, crap happens. You can't stop it. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, okay, it's not like we're sprinkling some damn fairy dust on the daggone connection, and all of a sudden in a box it's going to go, oh, I want to spread apart. Well, Paul, the magnetic field will expand and contract. Shut the hell up. It's stupid. Stupid. Follow the instructions and be done with it. All right, that's my monologue. Let's get into the lesson. Okay, again, I love some of these videos I see. It's almost as bad as a video where the guy's talking about which conductor carries more current, the stranded or the solid. Doesn't tell you the size, so I'm like, who gives a shit? I'm an electrician. I'm going to go to the NEC, go to 31016, and I'm going to look at the ampacity. Guess what? A 12 solid carries the same amount of current as a 12 stranded. Hello? Why do y'all worry about that shit? Why do people, social media, why do you worry about that little stuff? And better off, that guy did a video talking about Wagos and splices and all this shit, and then behind him, he's got code violations. Hey, how about you turn around and fix those code violations and then do a video on how you fix those code violations? Whoop, whoop. That's what I'm talking about. Woo, 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 woo. Big dog. All right, let's get into the topic today. We're going to talk about Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit first. This is Article 350. I'm sure you guys use Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit all the freaking time. Remember that when you're using it outdoors, it's a wet location. Doesn't matter if it says Liquidtight. You get me? It's a wet location. So let's hammer that one home right now. It's a wet location. So the products you're going to use in it are going to be rated for a wet location, right? The little trinket that you can remember in the back of your mind. If I had $1 through the years for everybody that tries to sleeve a dry location only product through Liquidtight in a wet location or a damp location, and miraculously think that the Liquidtight turns the inside of that conduit into a dry location. If I had $1 for that, man, I'd be one rich ass man. That ain't how it happens. That's not how it works, folks. Okay, just because it says Liquidtight, you and me both know there's going to be water in that conduit at some point due to condensation, maybe heat from the current draw, and the ambient temperature outside causes condensation on the inside wall of the conduit, or it does get moisture in there because people don't properly do things all the time, make the fittings upright. You get what I'm saying, right? Okay. Just saying. Oh, and by the way, for all of you out there, the haters that are watching, no, you can't strip non-metallic sheath cable and use the inners inside of Liquidtight Flexible Metal or Liquidtight Flexible Nonmetallic Conduit. Just want to throw that out there because there's always somebody goes, but I can use it. No, you can't. No, you can't. Now, if you want to put UFB in there, go ahead, but you can't do it. All right, let's get to the topic. All right, Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit, Article 350, the equivalent of 4 bends, 360 is the maximum allowed between pull points. Did you know that? Even with a flexible product like this, you still have to be careful of the bends. Okay? So, conduit bodies and blah, 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 those are examples of pull points. So, 350.24b, again, be careful in how you bend. I think a lot of people ignore that and they just run it from point A to point B. And they don't really realize that they could. You know, I've seen this run out for decking, run from a house out to the decking, going to things like for hot tubs and different things. And they forget that you just can't bend it willy-nilly as you want. Okay. You still got bending rules you have to be aware of. Okay. Give me a holla if you didn't know that. All right. So next, it says Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit, LFMC, is a raceway of circular cross section. Okay, it is round, having an outer Liquidtight non-metallic sunlight resistant jacket over an inner flexible metal core, okay, with associated couplings, connectors, and fittings for the installation of electrical conductors. So obviously using it outside in a wet location, I mean, what would be the point? Why would you use a Liquidtight metal conduit outside? I mean, inside, when you typically would use it outside. I guess you could use it inside, but remember, this doesn't offer physical protection. So even though you may sleeve it on something, it doesn't elevate it to being protected against physical damage. Well, some people say, well, it's better than nothing. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean the code says that it's for physical protection. Just remember that. But so when I run this outside and I'm taking advantage of that sunlight resistant jacket and the wet location rating and all that, and of course my conductors inside are rated for wet location and all that type of thing, just remember that the connections, the fittings, everything has to be listed to work with that wiring method. No transitions between this and another type of raceway using something like a coupling that is not designed for transition. We want to use transition fittings if we're going from point A to point B in 2 different wiring methods, okay? Things like that. So the couplings have to be listed, connectors listed, all fittings that are associated with it, all listed for use with LFMC, okay? Securing and supporting requirements for LFMC are listed in 350.30. We're going to look at all this, but I'm just kind of giving you the summary real quick because somebody said, Paul, give me the summary. All right, I'm doing it. Right there, again, the .30. Remember, .30 is pretty synonymous across the wiring methods. So if you have to lock some, what's up, Edward? What's up, Robert? Glad to have you here. David A., I see you in here. So if you want to remember certain little trinkets, just remember .30 is a securing and supporting for most of your wiring methods. Okay, so that type of thing. Just remember. Let's see. LFMC and the associated fittings obviously must be listed. We said that. The .6 for most all of the wiring method is going to be the listing. Now, what's interesting is that you're going to see things like boxes where, and certain things where you might not see a .6 because there are things that are not required to be listed, but they may have certain uses for a product that will get a listing, like floor boxes, listing, that type of thing, right? So important to remember that when it comes to wiring cable or the wiring methods, those all have to be listed. So they have to be evaluated. Of course, the wire it goes inside of it, obviously, also has to be listed as well. It means that somebody's looking at it and giving it the big old thumbs up. Of course, they're getting paid for it, okay? Because you got to pay money for that precious little NRTL mark. They're getting that thumbs up saying, yeah. Okay. Everybody's got to get their palm greased in all industries. So might as well get over it. That type of thing. All right. So let's get back to where I was. All right. So angle connectors shall not be concealed. 350.42 doesn't mean you can't use an angle connector. It just means that you can't put an angle connector on LFMC and then stick that sucker in a wall. All right? Trying to get that tight corner into a box, whatnot, and that portion is going to be concealed. I can't do that. Doesn't mean you can't use an angle connector. Just means you can't conceal an angle connector. Okay. All right. Now, when it comes to grounding Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit, it says LFMC used to connect equipment where flexibility is necessary to minimize the transmission of vibration from equipment or to provide flexibility for equipment that requires movement after installation must have an equipment grounding conductor. Okay, that is 350.60 and 250.118A6E. Now, what this is saying is if you're installing the LFMC for flexibility, okay, some type of movement, some type of whatever transmission of vibration of the piece of equipment you're supplying, if that is in play, we're going to ignore this portion down here that we're getting ready to read about whether or not certain sizes of LFMC in certain lengths can be considered an equipment grounding conductor. What we're saying is, hey, look, if you're installing LFMC and there is flexibility, the reason you're doing it is for flexibility to a motor or a piece of equipment, you need that bending flexibility. Or if there is movement or transmission of vibration or anything that can come from whatever you're connecting to that can transmit this vibration over onto the LFMC, guess what? You're going to put an equipment ground in there. Period. Makes sense? Should make sense. All right. Now, the question is, well, okay, I got that. I get it. But I'm installing it. It's not moving. It's just permanent. I'm strapping it. I'm not going to have any of this vibration. Got you. What links can I use? LFMC, the actual armor inside of it itself. What can I use that as an equipment ground? Well, okay, let's look at it right here. So LFMC 3/8 inch through 1 1/4 inch. So the size range there can be used as a grounding means if number one, the total length of the flexible conduit in any ground fault current path is not more than 6 feet. Well, obviously, if you've got flexible and you've got circuits running through it and you've got a load on the end that those circuit conductors connect to, then you've got a freaking ground fault. You're going to need a ground fault current path. You're going to need a low impedance effective ground fault current path. Okay. Well, that's fine as long as we're going to use the armor, as long as it's 3/8 through 1 1/4, as long as it is not more than 6 feet. Okay. Got you. All right. And it says number two, the conduit is terminated in a listed fitting. Well, they're already required to be listed. Okay. But you know what? I see people do some weird shit. So I'm just saying, oh, I'm sorry. If I offend you with my cuss words, I've already figured out that I can't not do it. And so again, I don't drop the F bombs, but I will drop a S word now and then. If that offends you, you know what? There is a button somewhere on your screen that you can say and leave. It's okay. I don't care who I offend. I'm just here to teach code. We're not here to become cousins. You know what I'm saying? I'm just here to teach you. If I offend you, okay, get over it. I'm just learn from me. You don't have to like me. Just learn from me. I'm just saying. Okay. I say that always just to make people clear. Okay. All right. So there you go. And number three, it says the circuit conductors contained within are protected by overcurrent devices rated 20 amps or less for 3/8 through and half for 3/8. Okay, so it's 20 amps or less for 3/8 size. Okay, what's up, Wang? And half inch. Okay, so it's got to be 20 amps or less. So it's got to meet this other rules here, right? No more than 6 feet, terminated in a listed fitting. And for 3/8 and half inch, it's got to have an overcurrent device protecting the circuit that's in it to not exceed 20 amps. Okay, now, and 60 amps or less for 3/4 through 1 1/4 trade size. Okay, so that's what it says in 250.118A6. Okay? So we have those different allowances. Again, can't exceed 6 feet. Got it. It's got to be terminate. The actual LFMC's got to terminate inside of a fitting that's listed. Okay, that's a .6 requirement anyway. Okay, got it. You know what I'm saying? And then if it is 3/8 through a half inch, got to be that circuit has to be protected by a 20 amp overcurrent device or less. Yes, could be less, but it's not over. And then if it is the trade size is 3/4 through 1 1/4, which is the maximum size for that 6 foot allowance. If that's the case, then the conductors going in it have to be protected at 60 amps or less. So does that mean that 60 is the max? Yeah. Could I do it at 50? Could I do it at 40? Could I do it at 30? Could I even do it at 20? Absolutely. Just can't exceed 60 amps on that. If you want to use the 6 feet as an equipment ground. You go over 6 feet, doesn't mean you can't have LFMC over 6 feet, but that just means that you can't use the armor inside of it as an effective ground fault current pad. So you're going to put a wire type equipment grounding conductor in there. Okay. And those are all listed in 250.118 as well, A1. All right. So that's what we're talking about for that. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay. And so now let's go back to the lesson. Let's go on and knock out this real quick before I go look at the code. Liquidtight Flexible Nonmetallic Conduit, LFNC. Why am I having trouble saying words today? I'm having a stroke or something. I need some more coffee. That would suck. Me have a stroke right here on live. That would be terrible because my wife doesn't know how to work the computer, and so that means that my live stream would go on forever, and I'd just be laying there with drool coming out my mouth. That would suck. All right. Anyway, next it says type L. Oh, it's not that she would walk past me to turn off the computer because she doesn't know how to turn off the computer. I'm just saying. I'd be running forever. I'm just saying. All right. The LFNC. So type LFNCB. Okay. There's different types if you didn't know that. Has a smooth inner surface having integral reinforcement within the raceway built into the actual raceway itself. So there is no metal component, obviously, hence it's non-metallic, but it's how it's constructed. We'll look at the code because there are different types. And so kind of be that aware. Now, the one you buy typically off the shelf every day of the week that you probably just go into the supply house and buy, okay, is just off the shelf. Yeah, I wish that Paul says, don't die, we need you. Paul, we're all going to die, bro. It's just a matter of when and how, okay? And I'm trying to think of the most painless way to ever have that happen. And again, I don't control that. All right. It's all about what we can do in the time we're here. And we got to do as much as we can because life goes by quickly in a blink of an eye. Okay. That's why I tell people don't sit on your laurels when you become a journeyman. Strive to be a master. Don't be a lifetime apprentice. Get that damn license. Move up. Keep going as high as you can go. And then when you become a master, then you take a journey like Tom did. You take a journey like Jason did. You take a journey like David did. And you become a CMECP and you raise your game. You keep moving. Okay? Okay. Where was that? All right. So now it says the maximum approved electric side is so for LFNC, it's 4-inch or trade size 4 is the largest you can get. That's some big old LFNC Liquidtight. That'd be some big stuff right there. The minimum is a half. Okay. All right. There you go. And LFNC and associated fit, they obviously must be listed. And angle connectors shall not be used for concealed raceway installation. So that is the same. Okay. We can't throw these suckers inside a concealed wall. It doesn't mean we can't use them. It just means that we cannot throw them inside a concealed location. Okay. And concealed is defined in Article 100. Okay. So there you go. So Liquidtight Flexible Nonmetallic Conduit. And I really don't like that we didn't give you a lot of information on the metal one. So we'll go to the code here in a second. Hopefully I can get through it. And where I've already talked about stuff, I'll try to skip over. I'm not making an effort to stop at an hour, even though, I keep saying I am. I realize it's futile. I just can't. I'm long-winded. My haters will tell you, I love to hear myself talk. That's the whole reason I do all this, right? That's what they say. They say it because I love to just hear myself talk. And it might be true. I'm just saying, I have a beautiful voice. All right. So where equipment grounding is required, a separate equipment grounding connector must be installed in the conduit. Okay. So if it's running to a circuit to a piece of equipment, obviously you're going to have an effective ground fault current pad. We got to follow the rules in 250.4, right? Okay. So we're going to have it. You might start in the conduit. There you go. As now, the reason it says like this, because there are allowances for bonding jumpers or conductors to be installed on the outside of a raceway, by the way. But I think in general, and we'll cover that a lot of times in our grounding and bonding courses when we're talking about bonding jumpers, equipment bonding jumpers, and things like that. In the most part, any of you that ever run a circuit inside of Liquidtight, regardless whether it's flexible non-metallic or if you're not using the metal inside of a Liquidtight Flexible Metallic Conduit, you're going to put a wire type equipment ground in there. I think that's probably what most people are going to do. All conductors of the same circuit, including equipment grounding connector, must be contained within the same raceway. That's a 300.3B. I posted a picture on TikTok maybe a week ago, and I asked people, I say, what do you think's wrong with this picture? It was because they ran half the circuit conductors in one raceway and the other half in the other raceway, and all the equipment grounds in one raceway and no equipment ground in the other raceway. They weren't running everything together, so you can only guess what's going to happen in those expanding and collapsing magnetic fields. And so, yeah, wasn't a good thing. So that was the issue, and that was a violation of 300.3B. If you see that video over on TikTok, if you're a TikToker, okay, all right. LFNC must be securely fastened in intervals not exceeding 3 feet. Okay. LFNC must be secured within 12 inches, okay, of each connection at every outlet box, junction box, cabinet, or fitting. Okay, so secure within 12. Remember our old saying, within 12, there's people out there that run around doing videos that say, well, within 12 means it has to be at 11 inches and 12. No, within 12. So 12 is included, okay? Believe it or not, there are people that make videos on that, and they're educators, okay? I'm like, really? We got better things to do than to worry about the semantics of that shit. I'm just saying. Okay, where flexibility is necessary, LFNC can be secured within 3 feet of the termination. Okay, now I don't know if you can see this illustration. I will blow it up if I can. Well, hold on for a second. That's close enough. So here's the box, okay, right? And you got this right here. And there you go. So this one is here with 1 foot, which is base 12 inches. Also be careful in an exam, folks. And we do this in our practice questions that are in our programs. We'll ask you for something. It may say it in the code in inches. We may ask for it in feet, especially if it says 12 inches. And we might give you 12 inches as an answer, but we also may give you 1 foot. Now, if a question asks you to give it in feet, and you're like, well, the code says 12 inches, you got to know to put 1 foot. You have to be able to figure that out. And the why do we give you questions like that? It's to make you think. That's it. Okay. Obviously, 12 inches would be the answer question, but we want it in feet, 1 foot. We do this for a reason. Don't fight with the system. We have developed it, and we ask you these questions for a reason, a certain way, all throughout our programs in our competency reviews. We ask you questions a certain way to make you think. That's it. Don't overthink it. Just work the process, okay? And don't skip around, by the way, in our program. People jump around from unit to unit. In our program, no. Unit 1, no matter what you think you know, start at Unit 1 and move your way through. Absolutely, David. Reading comprehension is the one thing that people struggle with. I posted a TikTok thing about laundry circuits, okay? And you can't have, with the laundry circuits, 210.11c2, you can't have any other outlet. And the guy posted and on the image, it shows a red circle with a line through it when it fed up to a luminaire. A guy posted, said, you're not supposed to feed the lighting circuit from that 20 amp circuit for the laundry. I'm like, dude, did you not look at the graphic? Did you not read the code? Did you not read the stuff that we put on there? You click on the text and you can read everything. It's right there. It shows you a circle with a line through it that you can't feed the lighting. People today just don't want to stop, relax, read it, absorb it, learn from it, regurgitate it, and move on to the next lesson. They don't get it. It's frustrating. You know what? It is what it is. That's our generation today. So anyway, not that there's not some good young electricians out there. I'm not saying that. I never said that. I'm just saying that there's the ones that are not seem to rush to social media and want to show their ass. I'm just saying. All right. So here's the flexibility, okay, from the last securement. Again, 3 feet. There you go. Piece of equipment. It looks like a piece of pool equipment, by the way. All right, here it's within 1 foot, right here. All right. Doesn't show this distance right here. Okay. But I'm sure it's 3 feet. Right here. And then again, the last one right there. Makes sense? All right. Just want to make sure I cover that. Nadia says, would all of these supporting screen rules apply if I'm running Cat 5 through LFMC? If you're so the question is, Nadia, is that you're running a product through it, and what is the intent? Because the LFMC does not provide any physical protection to that Cat 5. Yeah. Reality, it does add more protection to it. Okay. But if you're not running it as the wiring method, and it's going to be up to your AHJ, but I would say, in my opinion, if you're not running it as a complete system and you're just sleeving it, now if you're running it as a complete system, then you're still using it as Liquidtight Flexible Metallic Conduit. You get what I'm saying? For me, it doesn't matter what you're putting into it. If you're running it as LFMC, then you have to follow the rules of LFMC, regardless of what I want to put in it. Okay. So if I'm running LFMC and I put fiber optic in it, I'm still running it as LFMC. So the rules of LFMC say how you secured it, because the securing and supporting is for the wiring method, not for what's in it. Whether I put single conductors in there, whether I put Cat 5 in there, whatever I put in there. Now, if you run Cat 5 by itself, it's got its own rules up in Chapter 8. But if I'm going to run a wiring method like LFMC or LFNC, and I probably would not run LFMC for that, I probably would run LFNC. But neither one of them offer physical damage protection, but they do offer some protection in the reality world. Okay, not in the code world, but in the reality world. And again, if you don't have to do it, and you're just doing it because you want to do it, then what I say is that it still has to follow the rules. You get what I'm saying? Okay. So anyway, there we go. Let me get back to the lesson. Because the code is the code, regardless of what you're putting in it. That's my opinion, and I'm going to stick that way because I want it to be consistent, okay, with the application. You know what I'm saying? Let's see here. Okay, so that's it for that. Let's go over to the code really quickly and talk through the code here. All right, we're going to shift gears back to Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit. I jump around a lot, can't help it. It's the ADD in me. All right, so the scope of 350. What are we talking about? This article covers the use, installation, and construction specification. Again, a 3-part layout here in this article. All right, we got the use, which is part 1, the installation, part 2, and the construction is part 3. Part 3 is for the manufacturers, and you're just reminded of that case is part 3 of how we have to construct it, or how the manufacturers have to construct it. Your biggest focus is part 1 is make sure you're using the right product for the right application. So it's always important to read the scope. Okay, it would suck to spend a whole bunch of time looking in the code when you find out that the scope of it says that this article doesn't even apply to your installation. That would suck. Okay. So in this case right here, and that's example can happen to things like x-rays, whether you're dealing with x-rays for a healthcare facility or something else, and you end up finding that you're in the wrong part of the code, and you're like, dude, I spent all this damn time and I should have just read the scope first to make sure it's germane to the topic. Okay. So covers the use installation of Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit, LFMC, and of course its associated fittings that have to be listed to work with it. Okay. Here you see a .2 reconditioning requirement. Okay, y'all remember that .2 used to be definitions, and then we changed and we moved all definitions to Article 100, the 2023 code. Now, in many places of the code, we're using the .2 as a recondition rule, letting you know when something can be reconditioned and when it can't be reconditioned. So here it says LFMC shall not be reconditioned. So what this means, again, let's say you're in an environment where you have the LFMC and it comes into a flooding condition, or maybe it's something where it got water in the ends or it got submerged. First thing you're going to do is always going to run and get the NEMA evaluating water damage document. It's free. Just go online and Google it, NEMA evaluating water damaged electrical equipment, and you will see it. It'll be one of the first links that come up. It's a free document. That's what you should give any time to any customer, and not just because of FEMA, but you should give it to them and let them be able to look and see that all the manufacturers came together to create that document to let you know what can and what can't be used in when it becomes a reconditioned environment. And so if something is submerged or underwater or something gets in it, then again, just remember, any of that exposure, you cannot recondition LFMC. Okay. David's pointing up UL 486D sealed vote is due on the 18th. All yes votes 17-15 so far. I don't even know that I voted yet, David. That's bad. I'm probably one of the ones that haven't voted yet. Thanks for reminding me. I have to get on there. I am not as diligent in my UL panels as I used to be. David, I'm on the downswing, bro. I should probably come off of most of those committees because I'm really just, you know what I mean? I'm on the downswing. All right, so let's go back to the NEC. All right, so here we're already back here. Okay. All right, so here's your listing requirement, .6. But I thank you, David, for keeping up on all that. Again, you can always remind me because I'm always, a little lazy on that. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I have voted yet. I keep getting the notices. I got to go in there. They send you the notices pretty good. All right, so listing requirement, all of it obviously all has to be listed. Now, here's the part 2. This is going to be the meat and potatoes of all of you electricians. A lot of this stuff we just looked at. First thing, LFMC shall be permitted, permissive statement. You can use some other wiring method if you want in these locations. So this is a permission, says shall be permitted, okay, to be used in exposed or concealed locations as follows. So run it along the wall, okay? Run it in the wall, it concealed, that's fine too. All right, it says number 1, where conditions of installation, operation, and maintenance require flexibility or protection from machinery, oils, liquid tights, vapors, and solids, okay? All right, go. So there is an application where you may use LFMC because of its liquid tight nature in exposed applications. Absolutely, you can get your 2026 early. Well, you won't get it now until it prints, but prepay, get it. If you have link, it'll be available on link at some point once it comes out. All right, next it says shall be permitted. It says in hazardous classified locations where specifically permitted by Chapter 5. Okay, so Chapter 5, you have 500, 501, 502, 503, 514. So you have all these different hazardous classified Class 1 Division 1, Class 1 Division 2, yada, yada, yada. It will have the different types of wiring methods in those specific articles specific to the different classifications of hazardous locations. Well, if it says that it's okay to use a Liquidtight Flexible Metallic Conduit in a specific location, maybe for flexibility, maybe for short pieces, then it'll tell you that. And if it says that, it's fine. Next, for direct burial, where it's listed and marked for the purpose, so that'll be marked on the outside of the non-metallic port. It'll have the markings on there, and that will tell you whether or not it's okay for direct burial. Most of them are okay for direct burial. But anyway, it'll have that on there. Next, it says conductors or cables rated at a temperature higher than the listed temperature rating of the LFMC shall be permitted to be installed. That means that whatever the rating is of the wiring method, the conductors may have a higher rating just by the nature of the insulation that's on there. Okay, they're permitted to be installed in there. However, provided the conductors or cables are not operated at a temperature higher than the listed temperature rating of the LFMC. So I can have a higher rated conductor's insulation, but at the end of the day, I got to make sure that I limit it to whatever the wiring method's temperature rating is. And that's usually okay because we use 9-degree rated C conductors. Typically, the raceways like this, LFMC or LFNC, are going to be rated equal to that. Usually don't have an issue. But again, it just makes a note for everybody out there who may be designing a system and you want to put some other, because there are insulation types that have a much higher temperature rating in it, but you can't put that and use that higher temperature rating, let's say for ampacities, and then put that inside of a raceway that has a lower temperature rating. Kind of defeats the purpose, right? Makes sense? It's okay to have a raceway with a higher temperature and have conductors inside with a lower temperature than it would be to have conductors inside with a lower temperature being put in a wiring method that has I say that backwards. Put conductors with a higher temperature rating in a raceway where the raceway has a lower temperature rating, then that wouldn't make any damn sense, right? Okay, you know what I'm saying? All right. All right, so now, use is not permitted. This is pretty short, dude. Usually we have lists of .12 that are like, pew, 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 pew. Here's what it says. It says LFMC shall not be used where subject to physical damage. So very broad use of LFMC. Very broad use, okay? I think that's pretty amazing when you think about it. Usually we have these places where we say, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't. And here it's like, hey, we're gonna, hey, only thing we're gonna say is, you know what? Don't put it somewhere where the damn thing can be damaged. And again, this is to remind you that even if you sleeve something in LFMC or even LFNC, it's not gonna take it to a point where you can be put it. So if you're already putting sleeving any type of cable inside of LFMC or LFNC, because it's that NM cable, let's say, is you're saying, oh man, this could be damaged, and now you're sleeving it in one of these products, it doesn't raise it to a level where, oh, now it's protected against physical. It doesn't, as far as the code's concerned, and make you feel better. Or it might make an inspector go, have at it, my friend. It looks good from here. Reality is, it doesn't change the fact that non-metallic sheet cable can't be installed where it's subject to physical damage. Neither can LFMC or LFNC, by the way. Okay? So you get what I'm saying? You feel me? Same with MC cable. Even though it has that armor, still can't be located where subject to physical damage. That type of thing. So in your mind, if you're protecting it by sleeving it, some type of wiring method, and you're sleeving it in one of these, you're thinking, why am I sleeving this? Am I sleeving it because I want to? That's called going over and above code, and that's okay. Am I sleeving it because I'm going to add some physical protection to it? No, you're not. So really, you're just going over and above. Now, in the reality of life, the scheme of the globe, are you adding a little more protection? Well, certainly. It's obviously better than the exposed cable if you fear that something could damage it. That's why it's the difference between the code versus reality, and you have to walk that balance. But you have if a cable is subject to physical damage and they sheath it in this, just a small section, let's say, and they think that it's protecting it, and an inspector walks up and goes, oh, I'm sorry, it's not going to cut it. The inspector would be right. But then we have to be the kind of inspector that looks at the environment and goes, I'll give you an example. In my house, I didn't wire my house. I bought my house. It was being built before I came to Texas, from Texas here. The electricians did a pretty good job on this house. I will tell you, I went over it with a fine-tooth comb. I will tell you that. I pulled out boxes. I'm just saying. I looked at the wiring in the open utility room to see how they, pretty much if you're going to install something open where it's going to be seen, I'm thinking, well, they probably followed the same neatness throughout the house. And they did a neat job. I will give them that. I didn't see any staples driven to. No, I didn't see any janky stuff. They're routing from the utility room. Everything looks good to the panel. So I'm like, okay, these guys did a pretty good job. I opened everything up. I looked at every panel. I looked at everything. Trust me, that I could see. But one of the things that when you think about it and you're looking at it, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, as I'm looking at everything in here, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, was there an opportunity for them to do more than the code? And they did. Over to the water heater, from the ceiling, they sleeved down the non-metallic sheet cable in the Liquidtight Flexible Nonmetallic Conduit. And I'm like, they didn't have to do that. And I'm assuming some inspector said, well, that protects it from physical damage. If they had to just run it down the wall and ran it straight over to, it is protected from physical damage because you can't get to it because it's run behind the water heater. You'd literally have to damage the damn water heater to get to it, or you'd have to damage pipe. So we use a little common sense, but they chose to go above and beyond. Maybe the local AHJ told them to do this. Inspector said do it. It doesn't matter. Maybe this is common practice, but they did it anyway. That's going above and beyond. You have that choice. Now, would I have been upset if they had ran the non-metallic sheet cable down and straight over to it? No, I would. To me, that's compliant. They chose to go over and above. You can also always choose to go over and above. Code is a minimum, but if you go above the minimum, that's a choice. Not something where we say, well, I never do minimum code. I always go. It's a choice between you and your customer or your standard practice. That's what they chose to do. And it looks good. I don't have a problem with it. All right, anyway, so there you go. Use is not permitted. Now, sizing. Minimum size, half. Okay, although you have an exception down here for some of this trade size 3/8. That type smaller shall be permitted, again, under these applications. And then you have the maximum, which is trade size 4. Okay. Number of conductors and cables. Okay, so here you've got the sizes. So half through 4 says the number of conductors shall not exceed that permitted by percentage fill in Chapter 9, Table 1. Obviously, you folks know this is a raceway. Chapter 9, Table 1 has your fill rates, 53%, 31%, 40%, and then has all these notes that you have to follow. So you treat it like any other raceway, still have to do a raceway fill calculation, that type of thing. If you happen to be dealing with a 3/8-inch trade size, it says the number of conductors shall not exceed that permitted in table 348.22 for the fitting outside conduit column. So you use the outside conduit column. There's different columns. You want to use the fitting is on the outside, means it goes over the outside, and okay, that type of thing. Right? And we'll explain that table one day. Maybe I'll explain that table. Bends. There you go. There's your spin. The bends shall be done so that will not damage it, okay? And reduce it. If I'm bending LFMC or LFMC or NC, whatever, and it bends to where it looks like a football shape because I bent it around a post or something too tight, then you are reducing the interior diameter at any cross section. So that is wrong. So I, as an inspector, will say, you know what? You're bending that too tight. I have pictures of people taking it down the deck and turning it and running it with the deck, and it basically looks like a football as it turns around the end. That is a violation, okay? Give yourself a little more slack. Let it come out and turn. People don't like that turn at the end or whatever. It is what it is, okay? I was notorious. I would fail your ass if I saw you overbend products like this when I was doing inspections, okay? I'm just saying. Bends shall be permitted to be made manually without auxiliary equipment. Well, a no-brainer, okay? It says the radius of the interior curve of the center line of any bend shall not be less than Table 2, Chapter 9, using the other bends column. So again, not the full shoe, but use the other bends column for this. And the radius means that as it bends from the point where the bend starts and the point where the bend ends, that radius, you've heard me talk about it, which remember again, my old saying, circles, circumference, diameter, from the center out is radius. Okay, so on this table, if it says the radius is 2 inches, right? So that's center out, 2-inch radius. Then basically you take that 2, right? And you double it. So that's a 4-inch sphere. From the center out, it's 2 inches. So you act like you're wrapping it around a 4-inch sphere. Sphere. Okay, Sven is not with us today. A sphere. All right, so there you go. So the kind of, but you follow the bending rules, and notice this one says other bends, whereas other times in the code it'll say follow column 1, which is the full shoe or something like that. So, or one shot. So again, important to read the code. Number of bends, again, not exceed 360. I think people think with this kind of product that you can just willy-nilly bend it in bloop, 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 bloop. Nope, no sir. Trimming, did you know this? Trimming, all cut ends of this conduit, obviously because it has metal in it, okay, shall be trimmed inside and outside to remove rough edges. Securing and supporting, we kind of talked about this earlier. They have to be fastened within 12 inches. Okay, we get it. Okay, now notice this. Now we're not talking about from the last support now, this is metal version, to the actual piece of equipment. This one, it's this the securing and supporting is 4.5 feet. So it's the same as non-metallic. It's the same as AC cable. If you want to kind of link all those things in your mind, that one, all of this mimics those types of wiring methods, right? Now, here's an exception. It says, hey, by the way, LFMC is fished between access points in concealed space in finished basements, not during your rough-in, not during before you get the CO. This typically means after the building is finished and you go, oops, or somebody comes in and goes, I got to add this circuit in, and I can add a box and I can fish it. Okay, I'll let you do it. It's not practical for me to get in there and put any supports or securements. Okay, remember the fittings are considered securements. So we're like, okay, fine. All right. Or in the same scenario, if the structure or in supporting is impractical because maybe it's behind a piece of equipment that's just not practical to move. AHJs, work with the poor electrician. Okay. The majority of the vast electricians, and I know the ones that follow us, except for the haters, they want to do things right. Okay. But I'm not going to move somebody's heavy ass piece of equipment that I might break or that I might be responsible for when I can just boom, boom, fish it in there and be done with it. You know what I'm saying? Just saying. All right. Now, exception number 2 says where flexibility is necessary after installation, links. Okay, so while, and it says that after installation, not flexible for the installation, but after the installation. So I'm doing it in a reason that because of the proximity of the equipment or whatever, that I need to stay flexible after the installation, not just because I need convenience of the installation. That's why it says if necessary after the installation. Okay, so it needs to maintain that flexibility. Then it says the links from the last point where the raceway is securely fastened shall not exceed the following. So, last point of securement, you saw that image we did where at last point to a piece of equipment, that span from the last staple, strap, okay, over to the equipment. I need that flexibility to be maintained even after I'm done and I walk away. All right. Well, if that's the case, I can have 3 feet if it's trade size half through 1 1/4. I can have 4 feet if it's 1 1/2 through 2, and I can have 5 feet where it is 2 1/2 and larger. Remember what we said earlier. Once you get over a certain size, and you heard us talk about it, you're going to have an equipment ground in that raceway. Okay, you're not going to be using the raceway as an equipment ground. Remember we talked about that earlier. Okay. All right. So, and then of course you got some exceptions here. It says in links not exceeding 6 feet from a luminaire termination connection for tapped conductors to a luminaire, okay, as permitted. So what does this one mean? Well, remember, take your time when you read these because you might say, well, Paul, didn't it just say 3, 4, and 5 feet? Yes, that's where you need flexibility to equipment after the final installation. You still need that flexibility. You're not going to need that flexibility when you're whipping it down to the luminaire. In any case, we're going to allow you to go up to 6 feet. You still have to follow the rules of 410.117c, the tap conductors to these luminaires. But we're going to give you a little more allowance under this exception to go up to 6 feet. Okay. And then, of course, you have another exception here. It says length not exceeding 6 feet from the last point where the raceway is securely fastened for connections within an accessible ceiling to luminaires and other equipment. Okay. So again, this one's talking about the taps. This one is talking about, for example, just a simple branch circuit going from a junction box down to a luminaire outlet. Makes sense. In your mind, it doesn't matter. 6 foot, 6 foot, both of these meet 6 foot. And then lastly, I'll remind you, for the purpose of these exceptions, listed LFMC shall be permitted as a means of securement, the fitting. The fitting. So when it's connected to the box and you're coming out of it, don't let somebody say, hey, you're dropping from that box 6 feet down to a luminaire. Have some inspector come along and say, oh, look, I need you to put a wire if it's in a suspended ceiling. I need you to put a support wire on that with a bat wing. And you go, wait a minute. It's not exceeding 6 feet. Yeah, I just still want you to secure it. Oh, hell no, mon frere. I want to argue that point because I could have literally hundreds of these. Now, it's more evident in MC that you're going to fight that thing than it would be here. I mean, why in the world would you be using Liquidtight Flexible Metallic Conduit in that application? But I'm using it as an illustration. Right? That's right. Okay. All right. Supports. Okay. So that was secure. Supports. It says horizontal runs of LFMC supports by openings through framing members. Y'all have heard us talk about this in the past. I'm running it through framing members, things like that. At intervals not greater than 4.5 feet and securely fastened within 12 inches of the box is permitted. So if I'm running it through framing members, I'm running through metal framing members, it doesn't matter. I'm running them through them, things like that. It's considered supported until I turn vertical. And then the rules kick in to securing and supporting, again, every 4.5 feet, right? But also, I have to make sure that if I turn vertical, that I got to secure it within 12 inches. Can it be at 8 inches? Yep. 6 inches? Yep. 4 inches? Yep. Can it be at 13 inches? Nope. There you go. Couplings and connectors, only fittings listed for LFMC can be used. Again, here's where it talks about the angle connectors shall not can be concealed. And again, straight, not angle. Straight LFMC fittings shall be permitted for direct burial where they're marked as such. They'll have a DB on it, or I think most of these fittings are not going to put anything more than DB or burr on it. Okay, sound like I got a problem today. Not having a stroke. Burr. I'm not doing it. Oh Lord, I can see it now. Somebody's going to capture that and say Paul's making fun of people. I'm making fun of myself. I'm just saying. All right, so splices and taps. Splices and taps shall be made in accordance with 0.15. Again, wherever it's a wet location and you're running this product and you're making splices, it needs to be done in an enclosure that's rated for a wet location. And I should also remind you, you do not make splices and taps inside of any raceway, okay, like this. Okay, obviously, if you're in wireways and things like that, you can do taps and splices and all that. And you got fill requirements, but you're not going to do any of that stuff inside of a wiring method like an LFMC. That type. All right, here's your grounding and bonding. Fixed installations. LFMC shall be permitted to be used as an equipment grounding conductor when installed in accordance with 250.118A6, where flexibility is not required after the installation, right? So we go right here, and I'll just show you what we're talking about right here. Okay, we're down here, and it did not go there. So again, link has a little to be desired. It's not as friendly for us educators, so it's okay. It's not what it was designed. That's not what it was made for. All right, let's get down here to 6. Here's your Liquidtight right here, right? So Liquidtight Flexible Metal Conduit. Here's all the rules that we read to you earlier. Okay, right here. Okay, listed fittings. Here's the sizes I talked about, right? Here's the 20 amp for that. Here's the sizes that I talked about with not more than 60 amps. Yada, yada. So these are all the rules. Okay. So all it was saying is you have to meet all of those rules. Okay. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here on that one. So somebody will say, Paul, you're just talking to hear you talk again. I hear that all the time. Again, maybe true. I love my voice. All right, there you go. So that's your basic installation. So that's a okay, as long as you meet the rules, okay, 3/8, half inch, not more than 6 feet, okay, that type of thing, then you can have the MC, and the metal inside of it could be, if it's not over 20 amps, you could use that for equipment ground. And if you get from 3/4 up to 1 1/4, then as long as it doesn't exceed 60 amps and the circuit doesn't exceed 60 amps, and you follow all the other rules, then you can use the inner metal as an equipment ground conductor. Anything over that, then you need to have an equipment ground in there. If it's for flexible issue, you're installing because of flexibility, then you need to have an equipment ground in there anyway. You could not use the metal inside of it. That's what we're saying. Now, flexible installations and equipment grounding connectors shall be installed where flexibility is necessary. Okay, so that rule right there tells you, boom. Okay. Francis says we use non-metallic flexible tubing for islands to protect the Romex. What do you think? It just makes you feel good. It doesn't meet the code. So if you had an inspector came and said, you know what, it's subject to physical damage, you need to protect it. You'd have to sleeve it in a wiring method sleeve that adds physical protection, like EMT, Schedule 80 PVC, things like that, because Liquidtight does not provide physical damage. Now, it adds more protection. It's probably in all reality better, and it will be fine. If you get that inspector who wants to draw that hard line, he'll say, well, that's not protecting it, because Liquidtight itself says it can't be located where subject to physical damage. So are you telling me that LFMC is subject to physical damage? Then I'm not going to let you sleeve it in LFMC or LFNC. I'm not. The argument you need to make is that I tucked it back in the corner of the cabinet, and because of the angle of the corners, there's nothing really can damage it. Then they could say, well, you've got solvents under there that things could spill and all this kind of thing. You have to make that argument. But again, I have no problem with that extra little protection. It's you going above and beyond. Okay. But if they truly call that out as being subject to physical damage, then putting it in LFMC or NC is not going to resolve that issue in the code sense. But if it makes the AHJ happy, that's fine. What would scare me is the moment you walk away and that AHJ says, you know what, under that sink is a wet location. That would scare me, because then I would say, time out, time out, time out, time out. I'm not going to believe anything this inspector says at this point, because he's just making shit up. All right. So anyway, where are we at? All right. So there you go. Flexibility. Now, equipment grounding connectors says where required or installed, equipment grounding connectors shall be installed in accordance with 250.134. Okay. So when you install equipment grounding connector, 250.134 is talking about the additional requirements. And then, of course, equipment bonding jumpers, where required or installed, equipment bonders shall be installed in accordance with 250.102. And of course, that's going to talk about 250.102. We'll talk about, for example, 250.102C1 is bonding jumpers, and 250.102D, we'll talk about equipment bonding jumpers. Okay. That type of thing. Okay. You know what I'm saying? All right. So the moral of this story is here it's in black and white. People ask me all the time, do you have to memorize everything in NEC? Absolutely not. That's why we got Link on our phone. That's why we got code books. The key to being really savvy about understanding the National Electrical Code is not that you have to memorize it all. It's that you can find things in the code. You know how to navigate it. You get better. That's why in our programs, we have the chevrons. That's why I tell you, here's a little secret. There's a reason why I tell you to go from the lesson to the code book, back to the lesson, because that movement into the code book gets you better with navigation. That's why I teach you to dissect questions, because it gets you familiar with the index and navigating. Folks, it's not brain surgery. We created a system. Other educators never talked about the link between how you should study. We created that concept, and I've been talking about it now for 30 years. There's a concept to study in, but it's not just for exam prep. It's being a much better electrician in the field, understanding how to dissect it, break it down, how to navigate the code better. You do more compliant installations. You have less questions in the field, makes your life so much easier, less stress. That's what we're after, right? It's not hard work if you make it easy. Okay, you still got to do the physical part. Okay, my numbers start dropping when I start talking about things like that. That tells me they're not true viewers. They just were here to get what they can get, that type of thing. I'm just saying. I'm just being real. All right. So construction specifications. Again, the last one is the markings. Again, I can't scroll down. I'm not going to show you that because I don't want to mess up the screen. But all that is saying is that the markings on it, 350.120, that the manufacturer has to put the markings on it in accordance with 110.21. Okay. And that means we got to put the trade size, other information that's required, all that type, temperature ratings of it, whether it's rated for direct barrel or not. All that other stuff has to be provided by the manufacturer on that product. And they're already going to do that. So part 3 is usually irrelevant for most people. You know what I'm saying? All right. So let's real quick run also through the non-metallic, because that'll go quicker. Okay. The non-metallic version. Oh, here we go. This is the non-metallic. Probably the most commonly used. I don't know many people that buy the LFMC. They probably buy the LFNC. Remember, installing this outside, it's still in a wet location, so conductors that go in it have to be rated for a wet location. Okay? All right? Beto says, I know they made us do this multi-home sleeves in islands. They pour, okay? I believe it is to protect from chemicals. There you go. PVC, if it's a PVC material, does add extra level of protection. I have no problem with that as well. Again, everybody's different, but just don't let them say that it provides physical protection, because it really doesn't. But like they did in my utility room, they sleeved it in LFNC. I'm okay with that. They went over and above. Maybe AHJ said, well, you know what? I know it's on a fringe, and I don't like that NM there. Go ahead and just sleeve it in a bit. That's fine. I'm not here to make life difficult for people. Do what you feel you have to do. Just like the receptacles, backstab or wrap a screw. I have no problem with either. More people screw up the screw because they don't torque it right and it gets loose, or they over torque it and it damages the threads on the device. And as the conductor expands and contracts, that threading becomes a problem because it loosens up the screw. Whereas the backstab, you don't have to worry about torquing. But don't get me started. All right, anyway, so here you go. Here's the scope. Obviously, the same kind of concept. Uses, installation, and construction. 3 parts to this one. Okay. Also, all the fittings and associated that for use with Liquidtight Flexible Nonmetallic all have to be listed. There's your .6, the listing requirement. Okay. All of it has to be listed. Don't worry, the manufacturer. The only time you got to worry about this is if you're importing something funky from another country, then you got to worry. All right. Notice here, use is permitted. We got a broader list here than we had with the LFMC. It says LFMC shall be permitted to be installed in exposed or concealed locations for the following purposes. Okay, where flexibility is required for installation, operation, and maintenance. Absolutely. It's indeed flexible. I'll give it that. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go, Beto, right here. Where protection of the contained conductors is required for vapors, machine oils, liquids, and solids. There you go. So underneath the sink area, or where there might be, I don't necessarily think an island that doesn't have a sink, if that type of thing, that would be pushing it. But maybe under the sink, where you might have, cleaners and all that kind of stuff. There you go. Okay. It says for outdoor locations where listed and marked as suitable for the purpose. Again, it's going to be direct burial. Here it says for direct burial where listed and marked for the purpose. Now, here is a different one. So this one's just outdoor and this one's direct burial. So this one's outdoor. So you can also possibly get a specific use or specific practice that you may be, a manufacturer may do something for a piece of LFNC used in an application, maybe as a whip or as something for HVAC or something else that's used and is suitable or marked for a specific purpose. Then again, that would apply. It gives the manufacturer some leeway there to do what they want. If it's a direct burial, because this is above ground versus this is direct burial application, then it's got to be marked for the purpose, and it will. Okay. Installed in links long. Okay, look at this one, folks. Look at here. Installed in links longer than 6 feet were secured in accordance with 356.30. So for everybody says that no, you can't have LFNC in longer links, I will say, well, yes, you can, right? As long as it's secured properly. And remember, dot 30 is about securing and supporting. Okay. Next, it says specific. So this is specific. It says the LFNC-B as a listed manufacturer pre-wired assembly. So that may come as a whip from your outdoor air conditioning unit down to the condenser, right? Okay, there you go. Where it is half through one. Okay, so if it's LFNC-B, then I'm allowed to use it as a pre-manufactured assembly, right? There you go. Next, it says for encasement in concrete, were listed for direct burial and installed in compliance with 356.42, right? So again, we have rules in .42 we'll look at, that type of thing. 8, in locations subject to severe corrosive influences as covered in 300.6, right? And we're subject to chemicals for which the materials are specifically approved. This is an important one because this is where you would reach out to the manufacturer, for example, and use this in an area where maybe it's in a pool area where chemicals are stored or somewhere where somebody defines it as severe corrosive influences. Then this is saying, you know what? This may be a product alternative. Now, this is where I argued about PVC jacketed MC, that again, the covering is essentially the same. One is just without any metal inside of it, and this one is just an extruded, normal, non-metallic product. And they go, well, the reason is we don't like PVC jacketed MC is because it has the armor in it. Okay, well, MC, for example, you can't use the armor as an effective ground fault current pass, so we're putting an equipment ground anyway. So all we're doing with that armor is bonding at each end. That's it, okay? And it's inside of the PVC material. If the PVC material is damaged, then you have to replace it because you have lost all the benefit of it. So their argument didn't hold water, but this one specifically says, and you'll notice that it is yellow. So it is new. So obviously folks are listening. They're starting to learn. That's a good thing. All right. And again, this one is that temperature thing where you can't have conductors that are rated at a high temperature installed in the conduit that has a lower rating and then use the higher rating for ampacity of the conductor. No, not going to work. You're going to be limited to whatever the raceway's temperature limitation is. Okay. And there is some informational notes here about extreme cold and it can damage this stuff. Obviously, I've seen it installed in places that are so cold. They didn't follow the manufacturer's instructions, obviously, and it become very brittle. Got to think about where you install it. You know what I'm saying? All right, use is not permitted. Obviously, again, this is for the gentleman earlier. Physical damage, it does not provide any protection. So if you're sleeving it specifically because that wiring method is subject to physical damage, adding the sleeve of this stuff is not going to change that. So y'all get the logic there. If you want to put it in because, again, somebody said it's not subject to physical damage, but it needs to be protected maybe from liquids, and the HJ can make that call. But if you're saying put the Liquidtight Flexible Metallic Conduit on top of, let's say, an NM or some other because it adds physical protection, it does not. Okay? As far as the code's concerned. Okay? Next, it says where a combination of ambient and conductor temperatures in excess of that of what it's listed for. Well, that's a no-brainer. We kind of saw that as well. You can't install and use it at a higher ampacity for a higher temperature rating on the conductor than what the raceway is actually rated for. So, hello. You can't. Here it says use is not permitted in lengths longer than 6 feet. So you're limited to 6 feet except as permitted in 356.10.5 or where the longer length is approved as essential for the required degree of flexibility. So the HJ will allow you, that's what that approved word means, that you really need that flexibility to get there, things like that. Then they may allow you here to do this. Okay, so the lengths are limited to 6 feet, and that's just how you run it. But you do have some allowances, except for this one, 356.10.5, right here. Okay, where it specifically says that I can install it in lengths longer than 6 feet, but it references dot 30. We'll go look at that here, and we're going to be there in a second to see how this all ties together. Okay, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. So you can't be in longer than 6 unless you meet 356.10.5, which is ultimately going to tell you it can be longer as long as you meet the dot 30 securing requirements. And you're going to read that here in a second. It says, and it's not permitted in any hazardous classified locations except as permitted by other articles in the code. If by some chance that something in chapter 5, 500, 501, 502, 503, 514, whatever, if they permit it, right, then you can do it. Because we all know the structure of the code, right? We all know how this works. Chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 apply broadly throughout the entire NSC. 5, 6, and 7 will modify and supplement chapters 1 through 7. Okay, so it can make changes. That's why 680 in pools makes changes to something you might see in 250 for grounding and bonding. It does a little more. It can do that by the nature of the structure of the code. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's important stuff to always remember, keep locked away. Well, let me go back here. I don't want to go there. Let's go here. All right, so there you go. All right, sizes. There you go. It says LFMC sizes are half trade size. Should not be, it says smaller than half shall not be used unless permitted for 3/8 of an inch as followed. Okay, so it's not smaller than half. However, it says you've got some allowances here. It says for enclosing the leads of a motor as permitted in 430.245B. So that could be 3/8. So that could be less than half for this specific application. Then it says in length not exceeding 6 feet as part of a listed assembly for taps connections to luminaires as required in 410.117C or for utilization equipment. So this is talking about a listed assembly. Typically, these listed assemblies already are pre-wired, typically, and they have a 3/8 in it, and it's going from a tap connection down to a luminaire or a tap connection down to, let's say, a piece of utilization equipment, or it's associated with that piece of equipment. It already comes on it. Then you may see something smaller than half inch or half trade size. But typically, the minimum size for the normal application for LFMC is going to be trade side half inch. The maximum side is trade side 4. The number of conductors that can be in there, same as before. You're going to go to chapter 9, table 1. Going to follow the fill requirements. 1 conductor, 53%. 2 conductors, 31%. Over 2, 40% fill. Again, nipples, there's a note in there that's going to allow it to be at 60% fill. Got all these rules that you have to follow. But just remember that you could also go to Informative Annex C. But remember, if you use Informative Annex C, that means all the conductors in there have to be the same size. If they're not all the same size, then you just might as well forget Informative Annex C. Okay? And y'all remember my little tip I gave you a couple cycles ago? That, for example, if I'm going to shortcut this and go to Informative Annex C to see how many conductors I'm going to put in there, and I noticed that it says it can handle, let's just say, 4 number 4s. I'm just throwing numbers. 4 number 4s in that size under Informative Annex C, then you're like, okay, but I'm only putting 3 number 4s in there and a number 6. Then I don't need to go do any raceway fill count. If it was good for 4 number 4s, then you know it's going to be okay for 3 number 4s and a 6 because the 6 is smaller than the 4. That's the kind of stuff that as electricians you get used to and you just become that savvy and it saves you time. So again, that's one of my little tips. Informative Annex C, remember that is only for fill and it's pre-calculated out. It's only for raceway fill. It has nothing to do with conductor ampacity, okay? In number of current carrying conductors, because that is going to reduce the ampacity. That is only for fill. Never forget that. All right, and as before, when it calls this type of thing, it says cables shall be permitted to be installed in such use that where such use is not prohibited by the restrictive code articles. Okay, so I can put cables inside of it. There's no problem with that. Just follow the rules for the cable itself and that type of thing. So again, there is no problem with me putting cables inside of LF. And y'all just showed that you do it for non-metallic sheath cable, Romex, trade name of Southwire. Y'all put that in there. There's no problem with that. And if it's just an open at each end, then you don't have to worry about the raceway fill. If it's closed at each end and you want to put it in there, then you treat it as one conductor and you have to meet the 53% fill. That's in what? Chapter 9, Table 1, Note 9. Go read it, learn it, absorb it, and apply it. Dude, I sound like I should be on an infomercial or something like that. I don't know what the hell. All right, bins, 24. All right, so here, how many bins? You do it so that we don't damage it. And people ask me, how can I tell if this product is damaged? If you bend it too tightly, the gray color or whatever color will start to opaque out. And that starts to indicate that you're starting to damage it, that type of thing. But again, I don't think very many people damage this stuff, at least not intentionally, okay, when they bend it, okay? But if you bend it around something that kinks it, then that's a violation, okay? So give yourself a little room, make that bend, everything don't have to be right angles, folks. I'm just saying. Again, you can make the bends. Obviously, you're not going to use any equipment to make these bends. This is very flexible, okay? Just remember that there is a rule when you're making that bend. You say, well, how tight can I go? Well, if you're making that bend or you're bending it in the field, you'll notice it says the radius of the curve of the center line of any bend, okay, shall not be less than shown in Chapter 9, Table 2, using the other bend column, not the full shoe or one shot. You're using the other column this time, and that is a maintained bend. And again, we've talked over and over how you determine radius and how you use a sphere, and again, circumference, diameter, and radius from the center. And so it's like wrapping it around a sphere, okay? All right, anyway, I'm not going to go over that again rather than be redundant. Again, you still have your 360 degrees between pull points. I think that's probably one of the things that people don't take into consideration. They go from point A to point B and they just go up, bend, turn around, come down, run up. Then they go into a box, have an inspector come along and say, and they start adding it up. And then they go, dude. Now, people get in arguments with inspectors over this all the time. They go, dude, it's in. Obviously, it's not kinking. Be real. It's yeah, it may exceed 360, but dude, it's not going anywhere. You can argue with it all you want, but there's certain things in the code that I say are that you can argue, and there are certain things that are black and white. I can argue the stuff about whether it's subject to physical damage. I can argue different things with an inspector and have a plausible argument. What I can't do is argue with shit that is black and white. You get me? If somebody puts a staple and they put it at 13 inches, an inspector fails you and you go off your rocker and go, what are you doing? It's just 1 inch. Did the code not say that it has to be secured within 12 inches? Let's say it's a 2-gang box and it has an internals clamp and you can go up to 12 inches and you go to 13 and you fail because inspector calls you out and you go, well, that's petty. That's petty as shit. And then you look at him and go, dude, were you wrong? Just fix it. No sense in bitching. You should have followed the code. Same thing with nail plates. It is what it is. Just put the nail plate on there. Okay? What's the big deal? Why argue it? If it's black and white, it's black and white. There are things that you can argue. You can't argue that. Okay? Trimming. When you cut this stuff, trim the inside and outside because, again, even though you cut this as Liquidtight and it's non-metallic, it does make a sharp edge. Okay, so just kind of running around in there, get rid of those edges. Now, securing and supporting. Remember what we said earlier? Remember what we said earlier about when it said that you can have links longer than 6 feet as long as you follow the rules in 356.30? Remember that? Otherwise, the use is not permitted, says it can't be longer than 6 feet. All right, let's look at this. This is important stuff. LFMC, where installed in links exceeding 6 feet, the conduit shall be securely fastened in intervals not exceeding 3 feet and within 12 inches on each side of every outlet box, junction box, cabinet, or fitting. Where used, cable ties shall be listed for the application for securing and supporting. So you can use cable ties. I don't know of any cable tie that you would buy at Supply House that would not be listed for securing and supporting. You may get some from China, Tumu. You may order them in bulk and they may not be listed. And again, could an inspector force you to show the listing on the package? Yes, they could. Yes, they could. Do they have every right to? Yes, they do. Is it still going to secure it and support it? Absolutely. No different than throwing that non-metallic sheet cable in the earth. It's probably going to last longer than me and you. But you can't do it. So just don't do it. You know what I'm saying? All right. I was channeling my New Yorker. Just don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Don't do it. All right. So the next one says, okay, securing and supporting of a conduit shall not be required where it's being fished. Where it's being fished, it says installed in lengths not exceeding 3 feet at terminals where flexibility is required, or installed in lengths not exceeding 6 feet from a luminaire termination connection for tap conductors to luminaires in 110.117.c. Again, it's just regurgitating these length requirements. Now, here, horizontal runs, LFNC, supporting by openings through framing members at intervals not exceeding 3 feet. Okay, so as long as your stud spacing or your framing or your supports, you're not going to have them where they're more. So usually either 16 on center, that type of thing, you're okay. If you're installing it up into a ceiling where it may have these I-beams, metal I-beams, and you're doing it, then they may span longer. So you got to keep that in mind where you're installing it if you're running them horizontal. Okay, but if you're running it horizontal, and it's supported through the framing members at intervals not exceeding 3 feet, and it's securely fastened within 12 inches of when it ultimately does terminate, then it's okay. Considered secured and supported by the actual framing member that it's running through. And then this one says, securing and supporting of LFNC shall not be required or installed in lengths not exceeding 6 feet from the last point where the raceway is securely fastened for connection to within a accessible attic to a luminaire or other equipment, very broad. So it's other equipment, so down to a piece of equipment that may be above the suspended ceiling, that type of thing. And it says also, for the purpose of 356.30, it says listed Liquidtight Flexible Nonmetallic Conduit fittings shall be permitted as a means of support. So a little different in this one and how they broke it out and then put that last one about the fitting being considered support. It's just done a little differently, except for this one, instead of one big long run-on sentence now, it's kind of, over the years, it's been broken out into different subdivisions here, okay? And let's see, is there anything in the commentary? No, nothing important. All right, couplings and connectors, again, as before, only fittings listed for use of LFMC shall be used. Angle connectors shall not be used for concealed. Doesn't mean you can't use them, just can't use them for concealed. And then only straight LFNC fittings are permitted for direct burial or encasement in concrete. So no angles, no right angle ones. It still would be considered concealment or encased. And so you wouldn't be able to use the angles. Straights are fine. Splices and taps, again, if you're making splices or you're terminating this wiring method into an enclosure or something like that, you have to be aware of being a wet location and all these splices and where you come into the equipment and all that. Check out 300.15. Also, remember, you're not making any splices within this product itself. Only at junction boxes, terminations, equipment, things like that, not inside of the wiring method. Grounding, where equipment grounding is required, and it's going to be required on all circuits that are going to be to an overcurrent protected device. So you need to clear that overcurrent protected device. So you're going to need an equipment grounding conductor. It says where you're going to need an equipment grounding conductor, and you are from all circuit applications. It says a separate grounding conductor. I wish they had said a separate equipment grounding conductor shall be installed in the conduit. Okay, all right. There you go. And it says exception number 1 says, okay, look, where equipment grounding conductors shall be permitted to be run separately from the circuit conductors as permitted in 250.134, which is going to allow it to be external. It says exception number 2 for DC circuits and 250.134, exception number 1 for separate run equipment grounding conductors. Also, if you've never known this before, you could have a circuit that is an older established that doesn't have an equipment ground. The code does give you a provision to be able to run a separate standalone equipment grounding conductor to that outlet location. And when I say outlet, we're not talking about just a receptacle. The outlet would be the box which the receptacle is installed into. You have lighting outlets. An outlet is the box to which, or enclosure to which the lighting outlet is, the lighting luminaire is connected to. Such an important definition that people lose sight of is understanding what an outlet means. We got some educators who don't know what outlet means. They tried to change the code. They were unsuccessful because we need the definition of outlet to be what it is, because it is a very broadly used term. It's a point on the system where we take power from the premise wiring to supply utilization equipment and things like that. That is the whole point of what an outlet is. It's a theoretical, fictional point on the system. Okay? Box is a box. Enclosure is an enclosure. The outlet is the point where we're taking the power from the premise wiring to supply a piece of equipment. Okay? So there's no sense in arguing the semantics, because we just need to know what an outlet is and why we're taking power from this point. Then we can clearly rest easy and sleep at night knowing that we understand what an outlet actually is. So for the educator that submitted that, shame on you. You don't know what you're talking about. And I say that with all due respect and love and passion and affection. All right, so exception number 2, it says the equipment grounding conductor, they did put it down here, shall not be required where the grounded conductor is used to ground equipment as permitted in 250.142. So that would be example when we say where required, use of a product like this in a location where you wouldn't need an equipment ground because there's no overcurrent protected device ahead of it. So what's the point in running an equipment ground? Because the code does allow you in 250.142, most notably on the supply side, for example, where you don't need an equipment ground because the neutral can be used as that bonding component. Makes sense? That makes sense to me. All right, and then you get down into the construction. And that is part 3. Again, I'll just tell you here, LFNC B is a pre-wired manufacturer assembly, shall be provided in continuous links capable of being shipped in coils, reels, or cartons without damage. Okay, that type of thing. So that is specific to LFNC. Okay, but we'll go down here a little bit. Markings. LFMC, and you can't see all of this, but I'll show you. It says LFMC shall be marked at least every 2 feet in accordance with 110.21. The markings shall include the type designations, because there are multiple types of LFMC for multiple uses. Okay, always consult with the manufacturer. Okay, for your intended use. I think the main stuff you're going to buy off the shelf is going to be what is fine. You don't have to be so specific on that. But there's also a definition of conduit, Liquidtight Flexible Metal in Article 100 and in trade sizes. Conduit that is intended for outdoor use or direct burial shall be marked as such. So you can get LFMC that is not rated for direct burial. Be careful. Just look at the markings. Don't just go and grab, and especially in a supply house that may offer different stuff and you call ahead for the pickup, don't just go grab it off the shelf. Train your apprentices, train your helpers, train your journeymans, your masters. Don't trust anybody. Make sure you stop and you look at it and validate before you take off. Okay? I'm just saying. All right? I thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me. I appreciate all of you for joining me here on this episode. Join me every day at 8 a.m. Yes, I'm long winded. I can't help it. You know, by the way, if there's any haters still watching, please do me a favor. Don't follow. I just took another hour and 40 minutes of your life. You're welcome. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. We'll catch you tomorrow on another episode of Coffee Hour.